Hey everyone, welcome back to the Poplar Report. We're going to be talking about the audits that happened just days before Silicon Valley Bank and Signature banks collapsed. The same auditing firm, KPMG, which is one of the big four auditing firms out there. I may have looked at getting a job at one of those big four firms a while back. Didn't necessarily look so much at these guys, but they audit countless companies out there, and they just literally signed the completed audits for SVB was Silicon Valley Bank was February 24th. That's when they signed the audit. They completed the audit and they're like, thumbs up, everything's good. February 24th. Now that's a little inconvenient that the bank then collapsed just several weeks later. Signature Bank, they put their signature on the audit on March 1st. And of course, just days later, the bank ceased to exist. Now, if you're concerned about, what's the potential of this spreading to other places, you'd say, well, let's just look at the audited accounts and see what the auditors are saying about these banks and such. And it's gotten to the point where it has been mainstreamed to take these unnecessary risks to become so highly indebted as a bank that you can't sustain any kind of people wanting their money out. And that's where we are with the whole American banking system and what we're seeing over at Credit Suisse, which is the largest bank in Switzerland. It's coming crashing down. It looks like Credit Suisse will default in the next couple of days. So are the bank runs going to continue? The answer seems to be yes. The next domino is falling already. And this is not just a United States problem. This is a worldwide problem. Banks that adhere to Western standards of basically taking extremely risky bets and not protecting yourself in order that if you make profit, you get to pass it on to your shareholders. You get to get these big bonuses. Whereas if you fail, well, no problem there. The governments will just bail you out. And that's basically where we are with things, is that every time that we come around for another cycle where the banks come under stress, when they actually are tested, they could throw up their hands and say, who could have known this? This happened in 2008. And they absolutely got handed out money by the billions and billions and billions of dollars. And there were no consequences, it seemed like. Very few consequences for all the speculative behavior, this predatory behavior. People who work hard for a living are having a lot of the proceeds of their earnings taken away by these banks, by these corporations that just they have the money to do all these things. They have the lack of ethical fortitude to do these things that they ought not to be doing, and it puts all of us at a distinct disadvantage. What happens if you make a mistake financially out there? Does the government bail you out? What happens if you make a risk and it turns out bad? Do you get bailed out by the government? The answer is no. We don't get bailed out by the government, but these giant banks keep doing it and they keep getting bailed out. It was seen after the 2008 market collapse that just days and weeks before the collapse of these bonds, before the mortgage securities and such like that, they were all given great ratings by Moody's and the other rating agencies out there. And when they came back to investigate later, they're like, well, what could we have done? Like, if we had downgraded the ratings, then they wouldn't have paid us for the ratings. You have to ask yourself, then what's the point of the ratings? I think we're going to find a very similar thing with the auditing. The auditing for these banks is going to be, well, if we didn't give them, thumbs up, they wouldn't have paid us for our auditing. Friends, you can't believe what's going on out there. They are stacking the deck. It's one big scam. And people who think that the banking system, the stocks, the bonds, all that stuff is actually legitimate, it's not. The whole system is not set up fair. It is set up against the little guy. It's made to pay off all the people in charge, the politicians. What you can do is you can just step out of the system. That's what you need to do. We all need to be doing that, stepping out of the system and saying, I'm not going to play anymore. I'm done. I'm going to work on creating my own alternate methods of purchasing everything. I want to do business with people who are honest and who will treat me with respect. I want to do business with banks. I want to do business with cell phone providers. I want to do business with people who share my concerns and who share my morals. Because the immorality of the theft, the lies, the risky banking solutions and stuff like that are all just symptoms. I mean, when you are more woke than you are financially solvent, your name is Silicon Valley Bank. And yet we're all connected to these banks more than we ever know. My payroll provider that I pay my intern out of, that payroll provider, Patriot Software, they apparently use Silicon Valley Bank in order to process the payrolls. So I didn't even know if I was doing business with the Silicon Valley Bank, and yet apparently I am through different steps and everything like that. I'm not out any money, but I don't know how intern Tyler is going to get his stipend at the end of the month. And that's just a question among many, is how do we extricate ourselves and all of our financial dealings away from doing business with these type of organizations and people? And you can't trust the audits because they're just paid to give a rubber stamp and back it up with numbers. That's what it really is. I've learned that over the years with auditing and such like that. It's easy enough to do that, where you can either be looking for the truth or you can be just looking for a way to justify the answers that you want to give. And it's scarily true there. So friends, the whole system out there is rigged, and the more I look into it, the more I see of it, the more convinced I am that this whole system is just primed for just collapse. Our whole banking system, our whole Western way of life of just stealing money from as many countries and as many people as possible and calling it business is, it's not shifting me into being a communist, but I am seeing more and more the critiques that are being made and saying, those are fair. Now, I think that the banks are basically Marxist entities. These banks are paying off politicians, and the line between government and banks really isn't, there is no distinction. It's not like these are privately run capitalistic affairs. They're really just entities and cancer cells of the U.S. government. Really, the banking system is completely engaged with the government. How does the government get to spend money? Well, the government sells treasury bills to banks. And then the banks sell those treasury bills to the Federal Reserve because the Federal Reserve can't buy them directly. And so these banks just sit there and they just shuffle the paper from the U.S. federal government over to the central banks, and of course that's more legitimate, and of course the banks take a nice hefty profit for their services right off the top. It's just all this kind of stuff that goes on. It's just they are completely in the same boat. It's one big shadow government that is meant to just make certain people richer and to just steal from everybody else. So see what you can do to just step out of that as best you can. And that means us getting more self-sufficient. We're already starting to plan here kind of what kind of crops, what kind of stuff we're going to be growing in the garden. And I know it's already getting kind of late for that. If you're not already starting your starts indoors, you're going to be behind on planting this year. So hopefully you got seeds. Hopefully you got all that kind of set up. so that you can be a little more self-sufficient this year, because otherwise it just means being dependent upon these folks. All right, folks, I'm back in Pittsburgh in the United States, so glad to be here, glad to have you guys all out there. We're going to be putting on some videos in a short period of time about what's on my other channels, my Bold Faith Bible channel, where I do Bible studies and such. We'll be putting out some other videos about our travels to Kenya and our work there. But if you found this video to be useful or helpful, you might want to check out this other video right over here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you later. Steve Poplar out.